Snow was falling heavily on the city of Chicago that Christmas Eve, blanketing the gray streets in a layer of pristine white. From the fourth-floor window of St. Mary's Hospital, the world looked peaceful, almost magical. But inside, the air smelled of pine disinfectant and rubbing alcohol, a stark reminder that sickness takes no holidays. I was the charge nurse for the night shift. My name is Claire. While most people were home wrapping presents or drinking eggnog by the fire, I was double-checking medication charts and trying to keep the morale up for the patients who wouldn't be going home for Christmas. The hospital tried its best. There was tinsel wrapped around the nurse's station and a small plastic tree with blinking lights in the waiting room. But the festive cheer couldn't mask the underlying hum of monitors and the quiet desperation of the ICU. Room 305 was the center of our attention that week. The patient, Arthur Sterling, was a 55-year-old real estate mogul who had been admitted 10 days earlier with mysterious symptoms: multi-organ failure, hair loss, excruciating abdominal pain, and delirium. The doctors were baffled. They had tested for everything: Lyme disease, heavy metals, autoimmune disorders. But every test came back inconclusive. Arthur was fighting fast. He was a shadow of the man he used to be. His skin gray and clammy, his breathing shallow. We all suspected he wouldn't make it to New Year's Day. At 10:00 p.m., the elevator doors slid open, and a wave of expensive perfume cut through the sterile scent of the ward. It was Elena, Arthur's wife. She was 30 years his junior, a former model with a beauty that was as sharp and cold as an icicle. She was wearing a white mink coat that probably cost more than my car, and beneath it, a shimmering red dress that looked more appropriate for a gala than a deathbed vigil. In her hand, she carried a silver ice bucket containing a bottle of vintage champagne and 2 crystal flutes. She smiled at me as she passed the station. It was a practiced smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. "Merry Christmas, Claire," she said, her voice smooth like silk. "I've come to say my goodbyes. The doctors say, well, they say tonight might be it. I thought we should have one last toast." I nodded, feeling a pang of sympathy despite my dislike for her. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Sterling. Do you need anything? More pillows?" She shook her head, the diamonds in her ears catching the fluorescent light. "No, darling, just privacy. I want to be alone with my husband when the clock strikes 12. She walked into room 305 and closed the door. Something about her demeanor unsettled me. Most wives in her position were wrecks, crying, disheveled, begging the doctors for miracles. Elena looked like she was arriving at a premiere, but I dismissed the thought. Grief processes are different for everyone, I told myself. I had rounds to do. An hour passed. The hospital grew quieter as visitors left and patients drifted into drug-induced sleep. At 11:15 p.m., I realized we were low on ice for the fever patients. The ice machine on our floor was broken, typical for a holiday weekend, so I had to go down to the 3rd floor near the maintenance stairwell to get a fresh bucket. The corridors were dim and silent. As I approached the vending machines near the stairwell door, I heard a voice. It was echoing from the concrete stairs, magnified by the acoustics of the empty shaft. It was Elena. She must have stepped out to make a call where the signal was better, or perhaps where she thought she wouldn't be heard. I stopped. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the tone of her voice froze me in my tracks. She wasn't crying, she wasn't speaking in the hushed tones of a grieving widow. She was laughing, a low, throaty laugh that sounded nothing like the grieving wife. She played in the ward. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear. "Don't be an idiot, Marco," she said. "Of course it's happening tonight. Why do you think I'm here? The doctors are useless. They still think it's some rare tropical virus." A pause. "No, the autopsy won't show anything if they don't look for it. It's arsenic, Marco, but a refined compound. It looks like heart failure on the table." My hand flew to my mouth. I felt the blood drain from my face. Arsenic, the hair loss, the stomach pain, the organ failure. It wasn't a mystery illness. Arthur Sterling was being slowly poisoned, and the woman administering the poison was the one currently holding his hand. "I have the final dose in the champagne bottle. Elena continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Just one glass. He's so weak, his heart will give out before Santa comes down the chimney. By midnight, I'll be a widow, and will be rich. Just make sure the plane is ready for tomorrow. She hung up. The sound of her heels clicking on the concrete stairs signaled she was coming back up. I panicked. I grabbed the ice bucket and sprinted back towards the nurse's station, taking the long way around so she wouldn't see me. My mind was racing. I had maybe 40 minutes before midnight. If she gave him that champagne, he was dead. But what could I do? If I burst into the room and accused her, she would deny it. She would say I was crazy. She was the wife, I was just a nurse. She would pour the champagne down the sink, destroy the evidence, and then sue the hospital. Or worse, she would wait and finish the job another way later. I needed proof, and I needed to save Arthur. I reached the station, breathless. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely type my password into the computer. I needed help, but the attending doctor, Dr. Morris, was in emergency surgery downstairs. Security? By the time they came up and argued with a wealthy woman, it might be too late. I looked at the monitor for room 305. The camera showed Elena sitting by the bed, stroking Arthur's hair. The champagne bottle sat on the bedside table, ominously condensation covered. She was checking her watch, waiting for midnight. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, but the line was busy. Christmas Eve accidents and domestic disputes clogging the system. 911. What is your emergency? A dispatcher finally answered. I need police at St. Mary's Hospital immediately, I whispered, huddled in the supply closet. Attempted murder in progress. Poisoning. The dispatcher started asking questions. Who? Where? How do you know? Just send them, I hissed and hung up. I couldn't wait for them. I had to intervene. I needed a plan. I needed to get that bottle away from her. Without her realizing, I knew. I took a deep breath, smoothed my scrubs, and grabbed a tray. I put a generic pitcher of water and some cups on it. I was going in. As I walked down the hall, every step felt heavy. I was walking into a lion's den. I knocked softly on the door of room 305 and entered. The room was dimly lit by the lights of the medical equipment and the soft glow of the city snow outside. Elena jumped slightly when I entered, quickly masking her annoyance with a smile. Claire, she said, her voice tight. I thought I asked for privacy. I know, Mrs. Sterling, I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. But Dr. Morris insists on a vitals check every hour for Arthur, especially with his heart rate being so erratic. It will only take a minute. I moved to the other side of the bed, placing the tray on the rolling table. I glanced at Arthur. He was barely conscious, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at Elena with such trust, such love. It broke my heart. Elena, he rasped, his voice like sandpaper. Is it time? Almost, my love, she cooed, patting his hand. Almost midnight. Then we can toast to peace. She reached for the champagne bottle. Actually, she said, looking at me, could you be a dear and open this for me? My nails are fresh, and I struggle with the cork. My heart stopped. She was handing me the murder weapon. This was my chance. But if I opened it, I couldn't prove anything. I needed the police to test the liquid inside. If I dropped it, the evidence would be gone. I took the cold bottle in my hands. It felt heavy, lethal. Of course, I said. I turned away from her, pretending to look for a towel to grip the cork. My mind was scrambling for a strategy. Actually, I said, turning back, I'm not allowed to open alcohol on duty, Mrs. Sterling, hospital policy, but I can get you a bottle opener from the break room. It was a stall tactic, a weak one. Elena narrowed her eyes. The mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing the predator beneath. Don't be silly, nurse, just pop the cork. Nobody's watching. I can't, I said, putting the bottle back down on the table. A little too hard. But I'll tell you what, I'll get Dr. Morris. He's coming up in 5 minutes. He can do it for you. We don't have 5 minutes, she snapped, her voice rising. She realized she had lost her composure and quickly dialed it back. I wanted it to be at exactly midnight. Tradition. She reached for the bottle herself. Never mind, I'll ruin a nail. She began to twist the wire cage of the cork. I looked at the clock on the wall. 11:50 p.m. The police weren't here. I was alone. I couldn't let her pour that drink. I had to do something drastic. I moved to adjust Arthur's pillow, and as I did, I accidentally bumped into the bedside table. I aimed for the glasses, not the bottle. The 2 crystal flutes crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 sparkling shards. "Oh my God!" I cried, feigning clumsiness. "I am so clumsy. I am so sorry." Elena stood up, furious. Her face turned red. "You idiot! You incompetent fool!" she screamed. "Look what you've done." "I'll clean it up right away," I said, dropping to my knees to pick up the glass, making sure to stay between her and the bottle. "I'll get fresh glasses. It will take just a second. Get out!" she hissed. "Get out and send someone else." "I can't leave broken glass here. It's a hazard," I insisted. I was buying time. Seconds. Minutes. Arthur groaned, agitated by the noise. "Elena? What's happening?" "Nothing, darling. The nurse is just leaving," she said, glaring at me with pure hatred. She reached into her oversized purse. For a second, I thought she had a gun, but she pulled out a plastic cup. A simple, red plastic cup. She had a backup plan. She was going to pour the champagne into a plastic cup if she had to. She was desperate. She popped the cork. The sound was like a gunshot in the small room. Pop. A wisp of smoke curled up. She poured the golden liquid into the plastic cup. The bubbles fizzed innocently. It looked delicious. It looked like celebration. It was death in a cup. "Here, Arthur," she said, ignoring me completely, lifting the cup to his cracked lips. "Drink this. It will make the pain go away." "No," I shouted. I didn't care about my job anymore. I didn't care about protocol. I lunged across the bed. I slapped the cup out of her hand. The champagne splashed all over the white sheets, soaking into the fabric, staining it like invisible blood. Elena shrieked. She raised her hand to strike me, her nails like claws. "You are fired. Do you hear me? I will own this hospital. I will have your license." "He's not drinking that," I yelled back, standing my ground. I heard you on the stairs. I know about the arsenic." The silence that followed was absolute. The color drained from Elena's face. She looked at Arthur. He was staring at her, confused, the fog in his brain clearing just enough to process the word arsenic. "Arsenic," Arthur whispered. "Elena?" She looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. "She's lying. She's crazy. Arthur, she's on drugs. Look at her." She grabbed the bottle, looking for a place to dump it. The sink. She lunged for the sink. "Security!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. Elena made it to the sink, but before she could pour the contents down the drain, the door burst open. It wasn't security. It was 2 police officers, snow still melting on their shoulders, guns drawn. "Drop the bottle, now!" Elena froze. The bottle slipped from her manicured fingers, but the officer closest to her, a young rookie with quick reflexes, lunged forward and caught it before it hit the linoleum. That bottle wasn't just glass and wine anymore. It was the smoking gun. "Step away from the sink, ma'am. Hands where I can see them," the officer shouted. Elena looked at the police, then at me, and finally at her husband. Her face twisted into a mask of ugly, raw fury. The glamorous facade crumbled completely. "This is ridiculous," she screeched as the second officer grabbed her wrists and spun her around. "I am Elena Sterling. You can't touch me. That nurse is crazy. She assaulted me." Arthur struggled to sit up, the IV lines pulling taut. He looked at the woman he had married, the woman he had showered with gifts and affection. "Elena," he whispered, his voice trembling with a pain that no medicine could numb. Did you really?" Elena didn't look at him with remorse. She looked at him with disgust. "You are taking too long to die, Arthur," she spat, cold and venomous, as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "You and your boring business trips. I have a life to live. Marco and I were going to be happy." The mention of the name Marco sealed her fate. Arthur slumped back against the pillows, tears leaking from his eyes, mixing with the sweat on his feverish skin. He closed his eyes, unable to watch as the police dragged his wife out of the room. She was kicking and screaming, her white fur coat slipping off her shoulders, to drag on the dirty hospital floor. a fallen queen. The room fell silent, save for the beep of the monitor. I looked at the officer holding the champagne bottle. "Don't let that out of your sight," I told him, my adrenaline crashing, leaving me shaking. "Test it for arsenic, and check her phone records for a man named Marco." The officer nodded grimly. "We will, ma'am. You did good. You saved his life." But the night wasn't over. Saving Arthur from the final dose was only step one. We had to save him from the poison already in his system. I paged Dr. Morris immediately. "It's not a tropical virus," I told him over the phone, breathless. "It's acute arsenic poisoning. Start chelation therapy. Now." The next few hours were a whirlwind. The lab rushed the sample from the champagne bottle. The results came back within an hour. The liquid contained a lethal concentration of arsenic trioxide, enough to kill a horse, let alone a weakened man. If Arthur had taken a single sip, his heart would have stopped before midnight. The mystery illness was solved. We started the antidote protocol immediately. Christmas Day dawned bright and cold. While families opened presents, Arthur Sterling fought through the side effects of the detoxification. It was a grueling process. He was weak, heartbroken, and physically shattered. I stayed past my shifts, sitting by his bed. He didn't have anyone else. The friends Elena had surrounded him with were part of her social circle, not his. He was a lonely man with a lot of money and a broken heart. "Why?" he asked me quietly around noon, staring at the snow piling up on the windowsill. I gave her everything. "Some people have holes in their souls that money can't fill, Arthur," I said gently, adjusting his blanket. "She didn't see you. She saw a bank account, but you're still here. You won. You have a second chance." The investigation moved fast. Police tracked Marco to a private airfield. He was Elena's personal trainer and secret lover. They found searches for untraceable poisons on his laptop. He turned on Elena the moment they offered him a plea deal. He confessed that they had been poisoning Arthur's protein shakes for months, but the doses were too small to kill him quickly. They got impatient. They wanted the Christmas payout. The trial of Elena Sterling was the scandal of the year. The Black Widow of Christmas Eve, the tabloids called her. She tried to plead insanity, then she tried to blame Marco entirely. But the testimony was damning. The most powerful moment came when the prosecutor placed the champagne bottle on the evidence table. It still had the festive foil wrapper on the neck. I testified about the phone call in the stairwell. I looked her in the eye from the witness stand. She didn't look scary anymore. She looked pathetic. The jury took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder. The judge sentenced her to 50 years. She was dragged away, still claiming she was the victim, 1 year later. It was Christmas Eve again at St. Mary's. I was working the night shift as usual. The hospital was decorating the same plastic tree. I was at the nurse's station, sipping lukewarm coffee, when I saw a man walking down the corridor. He was walking without a cane. His skin was flush with color. His hair had grown back thick and silver. He was carrying a large basket, but it wasn't champagne. It was filled with boxes of gourmet chocolates and handwritten cards for the entire staff. It was Arthur. I walked out to meet him. He smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached his eyes. "Merry Christmas, Claire," he said, putting the basket down. "Merry Christmas, Arthur," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. "You look incredible." "I feel incredible," he said. "I sold the big house. Too many ghosts. I bought a small cabin upstate. I adopted a dog. I'm happy, Claire. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. "This isn't champagne," he joked, a twinkle in his eye. "It's just a thank you." I opened it. It was a simple silver stethoscope with my initials engraved on it. "You heard me when no one else did," he said softly. "You listened to the monster in the hallway, and you listened to the dying man in the bed. You gave me this Christmas. Thank you." Arthur left a few minutes later to volunteer at a soup kitchen downtown. He had found a new purpose. As I watched him walk away, strong and alive, I realized that the best gifts aren't the ones wrapped in gold foil or fur coats. The best gift is waking up to see another day. Elena wanted a silent night for Arthur. Instead, she gave him a brand new life. And as the clock struck midnight, marking another Christmas, I raised my coffee cup to the empty corridor. Cheers, Arthur, I whispered. To life.